r/AskReddit by Reddit and chill. Gentlemen. What is an absolute red flag a woman can raise on the first date? My brother was in the army when he was set up on a blind date by a friend's girlfriend. Apparently during the first 10 minutes of dinner she was talking about how she would be such a great and loyal army wife. And how she thought army wives were so brave and admirable and how she would never leave him if he was injured. He had literally just met this girl. He stuck it out through dinner. Faked sick and left. She pursued him pretty hard after. But he lied and told her he decided he wasn't really over his ex and wasn't ready for a relationship. He said about a month later she tried to text him with a booty call. And said she even tried to sweeten the deal by saying he didn't need to wear protection because she was on birth control. Like, how many red flags can one girl have? Could someone please send this girl an officer and a gentleman? I get the feeling she doesn't know everyone is onto this scam. This takes me back to the early 20s version of me and a fine lass named Rebecca. We met at a New Year's party. She tall and artsy with some feather arrangement in her hair I complimented. Ooh, a midnight and a proper kiss on the cheek with the promise of a first date to start 1991. Picked her up for said date a few days later and same hair treatment. She tells me she's obsessed with birds and always wears a feather somewhere. Okay. No problem. She's still cute and full light and this just makes her quirky. Right? I was just a few years older and we went to a really nice Italian place near DC. She remarks how nice to be out with a grown-up but she's finishing college and has been dating boys. Nice. Dinner's great until dessert. The whipped cream on mine reminds her of her last boyfriend. She then tells me in great detail how she stalked him. Hiding in bushes near his house to spy. Effing with his tires and covering his entire car in whipped cream and eggs. Isn't that just the funnest? Check. Please. Are you sure she wasn't actually a bird? You sound just like my ex-boyfriend. Upon hearing my voice. That is what she said. Don't wave a knife at me please. You sound like my ex-boyfriend. Cool. Went out with a girl on a blind date and she tried to sell me Amway. Is this some sort of Ligma joke? What's Amway? Amway ting to stick my dong in your ass LMAO. I went to meet a woman from an online dating site and at the last minute she texted to ask if I could swing by her house, which was only a few blocks away from the Starbucks we were supposed to meet at. That should have been a tip off in retrospect, but we chatted a lot online so I felt comfortable enough. Maybe she just needed a lift or something instead. I come up to her house and when she opens the door, she is wearing an ankle bracelet. She begs me to please understand how she didn't want to mention it on the dating site and to please hear her out. I was naturally uncomfortable by this point but also curious, so I sat down for a few minutes in her living room. She told me of this domestic dispute she had with her ex that had turned violent and now she was on 30 days house arrest. A very overweight teenage girl came into the room at this point. And the woman said, "Oh yeah, I also forget to mention I come with this." Now I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I started making excuses to leave but she kept trying to get me to stay. Please. Just one date after I am done with house arrest. The things I could learn from a man of your smarts. I said nothing besides I really have to go. We'll think about it. I just walked out the door and she followed. Explaining that the bracelet had a range of several feet outside. I was rummaging for my car keys next to my car. When she grabbed my left hand and slid it under her shirt. Placing it directly on her bare breast. She looked up at me with a wicked grin. I got in the car without a word and just drove. I never felt so happy to drive away from a place in my life, so yay. Asking me about red flags may not be a great idea. Though hopefully I have wised up since then. Oh yeah, I also forget to mention I come with this. That poor ducking kid. Her mom's on house arrest for a domestic dispute. Kid was likely either a witness to it and knows her custodial parent is violent. Then to top it off, mom invites a strange dude over. And then refers to the gal as this? Not even a name. Just this, like a teenager is an ugly lamp or a pile of student debt. WTF. Starting a small fire in the street in front of your house before the date has even begun. I said I'd be out in a moment. The summoning ritual is really unnecessary. If she's been using pics of a 21-year online and turns out she's 60. I know this is probably a cliche, but after talking to a woman for a few weeks she decided I was a nice guy and wanted to meet me, so she wanted to come clean. She admitted the pic she used was of her daughter, who was 27. She was in fact divorced and in her 50s. When I said no thanks, I was in my early 30s. She then asked if she could set me up with her daughter, who was coming down to Sydney soon. Because I seemed like a nice guy. Said no thanks to that too. Daughter was hot. I am sure she was quite capable of finding her own dates. Their boyfriend calls them. Yikes, I'm sorry my guy. Asking if you have ever done heroin and would like to shoot up later. Unless you do want to shoot up later. Same for doing lines of coke. Heroin. That's just terrible. You said something about lines of coke, no? She can't take her eyes off her phone for more than 10 seconds. I was on a date while this shit was happening. Me. WTC, get hit again? Huh? No. I'm live streaming our date. My ex is watching. Me. Excuse me. I got up. Paid my half of the bill with the waitress and left. Had dinner with a blind date. Only saw her eyes maybe for 3 minutes before she was glued to her Instagram and Snapchat. Giggling to herself and replying to her followers. Tried to have a decent convo. But she was like a hug. That's cool, waitress comes. She doesn't even bother looking at the menu. Steak. Fries. And a glass of champagne then out of the blue. How much money do you make? I got up. Told her the date was done and left her at the restaurant. She was so glued to her phone. She just nodded. She blows up my phone raging that I was supposed to buy her dinner and exclaimed she had no money or ride to get back to her man's place. So yeah. She was fishing for free food and drinks. You made it out perfectly. Congrats on you. Oh boy, here we go. Long story short. I went on a date with a chick and we were vibing really well before she turned ice cold and began acting like a beach. At that point I just wasn't enjoying it, so I made up some excuse about having some stuff to do and left. Few hours later she texts me she was disappointed that I gave up so easy and she was testing how much I liked her. Needless to say, I didn't ask her on a second date. I'd rather be single celibate than have a relationship sex with the entire cast of Mean Girls crammed into a single person with the maturity of a high school freshman. Oh yeah? Well, you failed my test. She asked me to drive her back home to ensure she hadn't left her iron on. 20 years later I'm still checking that she's locked doors, turned things off, locked up the pets, etc. That's a long time to stalk somebody. She brings a guy from Tinder to the date. His name is Craig. He uses a paper clip as an earring. He spends most of the date sewing. Still wasn't the worst date I've ever had. So now I wanna hear about the worst date. A girl I dated was really obsessive over her ex. But not like wanting to get back with him. No. Good sir. She just wanted to make sure he didn't date anyone. And would force everyone around her to help her. Including me. I found out from her ex, a really nice guy, that on the first date we went on, she chose a specific restaurant because he had a date. And she wanted to ruin it. Apologies for the awful experience. But congratulations on the compelling narrative. Talks about her ex-boyfriend. A lot. Shit talking. Could be friends. Ex-boy, girl, friends. The service at the restaurant you're at. She gets upset at the most insignificant question. Went on a date. Asked her age. Immediate rage. It's rude to ask a woman how old she is. I hope you don't mind. But I couldn't find a babysitter and brought my kid. Yes, I do mind. You could have rescheduled. This is supposed to be a date. Not a future daddy test. Here's some money for you and the kid to have a nice dinner. Bye. Yes. Also lying about having kids and having no when you are at her place. Constantly bad-mouthing people. Holy shit, this. Looking back at my last relationship. If I had only seen these red flags. Ugh. Oh well. When she gets too personal and wants to know. The street you grew up on. Your first dog's name. What your first car was. Where you went to school. Mother's maiden name. The 3 wacky numbers on the back of your credit card. Making comments to imply that she wants a worshipper/gift giver instead of a partner. If you don't see her so as an equal, it's a bad sign. Pay pig. There are a few. 1. She never bothers to engage in small talk during the date at all, and any attempt on your part is only met with single word answers. Another would be if she kept talking about her ex during the date. Lastly, she answers her phone saying, "Hey dad, this isn't a good time." But you quickly notice the name on the call display oddly matches the name of your own father who disappeared when you were little. r/Sedenli incest. I'm not like other girls. Because she hates drama. She will raise a big red flag if she treats strangers like shit. You can tell a great deal about somebody by how they treat people who have no material benefits to them. Automatically ordering the most expensive thing on the menu if they are not splitting the bill. Not treating waitstaff with respect. Not trying to maintain eye contact while not being socially awkward. This one is context dependent. Constant use of their phone. Grossly bashing their ex. Or talking at length about them. Not the normal "oh, my ex was a dong." But really going on about it. Being generally inconsiderate or arrogant. Diverting conversation to talk overly about themselves, even on topics not about them. But not showing any interest in me as a person. Asks you if you are interested in making extra money. If you want to be your own boss. Double quote. Talking about an ex. Save that for later. Talking about how men are a-holes is a close second. If she starts playing on her phone, that means A. She's just there for a free meal. B. She's already dating someone. C. She's not interested in you. D. All of the above. Nah, my wife does this all the time. O. Telling you right at the beginning of a date how much she hates Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah. That was awkward edit. For those wondering how it came up. She was talking about how she went camping for a long weekend. Being that she had MLK Day off. But with a side note. Ugh. I ducking hate Martin Luther King. I guess she forgot to say I'm not racist, but first. Apart from all the usual ones, I really know it's not going to work if they start complaining about having to walk a short way when together. I get it if they're wearing heels, but if we plan to go to a restaurant, walk around a bit and see a movie, and 200 meters into the walking they start complaining, then it's just not going to work out. I dated a girl once who would get mad if I wouldn't circle around or wait until one of the closest spots were open. Her dad would do it all the time. I happen to be one of those people who park as far away as possible so my car doesn't get dinged by careless kids. It didn't work well. Had a girl tell me she likes to be spoiled. Well, I like $100 bills thrown at me. Me first. When you catch her douching with a bottle of soda. Do you want dance? Because this is how you get dance. Talking about how they want a man who knows how to treat a lady. Or checking out other guys with their eyes while still actually talking to you. Or ridiculing things you said. Or telling you their ex-boyfriend is a policeman and if anyone hurts me he will get them. Or telling you they have a BF but he's going to be in jail for 6 months. Or ordering as much expensive stuff as they can. Obviously more than they can eat. Because they think a date is a chance to burn a guy for as much as they can get. Or telling you a boo how their ex was an a-hole. In fact all their exes were a-holes. Or lying about their sprints or age before a blind date. Or some of the first questions they ask you are how much do you earn? What car do you drive? Where do you live? Do you own or rent? Or telling you their last BF was so generous he even bought you a house and gave it to you. 9 Korean girl in China. Receiving more than a dozen calls on her phone. Mostly that sounded male. While still in the car on the way to the restaurant. Chinese girl. I'd already decided not to date her again before we reached the restaurant. Yikes. There was this woman 20 years ago that I met because my mom knew her mom and both thought that's a nice idea that their only offsprings could become friends. That's what the premise was, go and become friends. Never met her before. She knew nothing about me, so yeah. Why not? Met her at a restaurant. Waiter ushered us to our table. We sat and even before the waiter was able to hand out the menus she said, "I look for a man to have children with because I want children now." The waiter had that bro. "I'm so sorry" smile on his face when he gave me the menu. This entree was followed by a monologue of a list of guys who all failed in her eyes. Because they were either from a bad family, somehow idiots, not able to have kids, or had some other background she disliked, and that she now have high hopes because her mom knows my mom and they told her that I am a nice and decent man. To make one thing clear, she was way out of my league. She was fit as hell and just beautiful with long black hair and blue eyes, while I still look like Shrek. We both were on the same level of intelligence. But I never studied and worked in public service while she was becoming a pharmacist. She said on the first date that she wants kids ASAP. Now imagine sitting there in your mid-20s with a goddess in front of you, both intellectual and body-wise, that talks for 2 hours just about herself and that she wants to marry ASAP and also wants kids. She offered me to drive home but also insisted in telling me that we won't have sex as long as I'm not willing to marry her. Sick. So she drove me home. We talked about her studies and then she became furious because a woman I know saw me in the car while standing on the crossing and smiled at me. Why is this woman smiling at you? Do you know her? Do you know many women? Bro, you didn't dodge a bullet. You dodged a thermonuclear warhead. Ducking, like and subscribe.